Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. So Ben is from InterSolar, Ben Whillock, okay, and you're Director of Business Development.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's great, yeah. And then we have Bill Brooks here, and Bill and I, we share a sailboat together, and Bill is like been doing solar for, 37 years. It keeps getting to be more, you know.
Yeah, it keeps getting to be more.
Can't believe
Every
that.
year.
It's like next year it's going to be more than the years he's been alive. So, yeah. And so Bill and I, we did a class on Monday here on the National Electrical Code, the Building Fire Codes, PV and energy storage systems. And we like to have a lot of fun and kind of mess around and give people a hard time and stuff like that, right? So one of the things I thought maybe that we could just talk about and bring up, just get things going, is InterSolar has this really cool thing that I have, and it's a mini split, and you can plug a string of PV into it. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm sure everybody's familiar with a mini split.
The great thing about this one, they can operate off AC or DC, and so during the day,
Plug your stream of solar
into it, and can completely take that load out of the mix. And so in the evening time,
It'll switch back to overgrid runoff. Whether you're running from an inverter or a restricted grid or RGB, they're
extremely efficient.
they work well, cost-effective. We see them. We do a lot of work in the Latin American areas, and you see them all. Somebody has a 4 or 5 ton air conditioning unit in Latin America.
So you see the mini splits,
They're everywhere. And I've got 2 of them at my house, and I think they're great.
So one of the things that I did is I pirated a screenshot off of InterSolar's webpage, and Bill and I were looking at that on Monday at our class. And so I think Bill would be a good one to explain how that would work with the code and PV system. Like, what makes a PV system, and how would you coordinate that?
I guess that's a good question. The definition of a PV system would not generally include the heat pump. So the solar array, whatever that is, would end at the connectors probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big question there is, does the disconnect that you have for the PV system, does that meet the requirements of a PV system disconnect? 690.13, and the answer is maybe yes, maybe no. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. So yeah, it's funny, talking about history, I installed the very first variable speed solar powered heat pump ever made in 1993, I think it was, as part of an EPRI project near Charlotte, North Carolina. So the idea has been around for a long time, but it's great to see. Mini splits are great, obviously. Any variable speed unit is using an inverter technology anyway, and so it's great to see those kind of products coming on the market in a more practical way.
So does one of you guys know like why they call it a mini split? Like,
Because it's small and it's split.
yep,
and so like the split part, maybe like, I know there's like 2 pieces. I
half
guess.
indoor, half outdoor.
Okay.
Split.
Instead of a window unit where it's all in one. So a window unit would be all in one unit, or through the wall unit. So there's both of those, like in a lot of hotels, motels, Holiday Inns. Through the wall unit, that's not a split. That's a single unit. So that's where they come up with the idea. And of course that idea is taken over the world.
So it's split, and so what's sitting outside and what's inside? So inside's like fan, I guess, and there's
Yeah.
tubes going in and out.
The power is brought to the outdoor unit, and then you have a cable going to the indoor unit, and the indoor unit has what's going in between is the control cable and power, and then you have the Freon cables, and that allows you to separate the two. And it's similar to a whole house system that most people have, except that there's no ductwork, so it's a ductless system. Before the mini split kind of moniker became the hip thing to say, they were ductless systems.
And so going back to the string of PV going in there, so it's just like one string of PV, but you need a PV system disconnect. So that would mean you need some kind of switch that opens up positive and negative.
That would be what the code would suggest.
But I'm just going to stick the connectors right into it, and that would probably be safe, right?
Well, sure, and that could certainly be saved. The question is, if you were actually wanting to be fully compliant with the NEC, what would you have to do additionally other than just have connectors running into the unit? And I think that'd be reasonably easy to do, but it would be some kind of a disconnecting mechanism. The one thing that's hard to comply with connectors is the opening both poles simultaneously. And so the connectors we're using nowadays are single conductor connectors. If you had a double connector, or if the connector was like all in one, kind of came together, then you could probably have something where you popped it out and it all came out at once. So there's ways that you could do it fairly inexpensively.
So just sort of like a pull-out or something like that.
A pull-out would be very inexpensive. You can get those for like $15-20.
Okay. And Ben, you guys sell the DC disconnect for that, I guess? I think I saw that website. Yeah. And then there's like a whole kit for that, right? Like you can get it with the PV and the rack and all that kind of stuff.
That's right. And so it's already sized for optimal PV, and it comes with the rack. So it makes it a very simple user experience. Click one button, you got it on the button.
Cool.
Most people can install it themselves. I mean, just do a little bit of homework. And I've had people ask me how big a hole is smaller than the wall. They're like, I don't want a hole this big in my wall. I was like, it's just the cassette size.
Right.
And, it's a very doable project
Cool.
for a homeowner.
Yeah.
I tell you, a really cool application that we've been seeing is folks that still have like NEM 2.0 status in California, and they've realized that they need a little bit more PV or they need some more inverting power. A lot of people are switching over to the mini splits, the hybrid mini splits, so that they can pull those extra loads off and get more out of their solar system without having to add anything new. And in most cases, they can still maintain their NEM 2.0 status.
Cool. And so I imagine that the way that this probably works internally is like a lot of times when you have air conditioners, so mini split too, it's also like got a heat pump. So it's got an air conditioner and a heater. Just air conditioner reverses a heater, pretty much. And so inside of this, you have like efficient appliances these days like that. They have an inverter. And so it goes from AC from the grid to DC, and then they can put it at the right frequency for back when they go back to AC to speed it up and slow it down and make it most efficient. So when it gets to that DC place, I guess then what you're doing is you're taking the PV and you're also bringing it to that DC bus in there. And then I'm sure that it doesn't go back and feed the grid, right?
No.
Yeah. Which would be kind of cool for somebody who's a guerrilla solar person, And so this thing, like say that there's a power outage or something like that, it'll work, right?
Yes, during the day.
Yeah. And it'll make heat and it'll make things cool off and all that, like inside of your house. And so what happens if it's like you don't have a whole lot of sun? Does it just make a little bit of heat or a little bit of cold? Or
Well, if it's enough to turn the unit on, it's going to function properly.
so it'll just like throttle itself down or something?
Yeah, and so it'll have amperage limits, and if it doesn't meet the amperage requirements, then it's not going to turn on.
Yeah.
And then once if your sun goes away, if you don't have any other power support in the unit, whenever you run into a situation with very little sun, it'll fall out.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. So maybe you could tell us some other stuff that you have there. And if you need any like free consulting for Bill or something,
Yeah. I'm sure Bill just loves that he's signing up for free consulting. We've got kind of a pretty broad catalog. Do everything off-grid inverters, microinverters, batteries, solar panels, very wide array of modules. Some of we change things up pretty often. The signature solar booth is actually right back there, shameless plug 1355. So we got some of the products that we carry on display there. But everything ranging from EG4, Grow Wide,
And so EG4, I see a lot of that. So is there like a relationship or something?
There is. So we actually have our founder is the same individual, Jim Showalter.
Okay.
So he still owns both companies. So we're all under the same umbrella for Energy Access Innovations, the name of the current company. What signature EG4 falls?
What does EG4 stand for?
Energy generation for everyone.
Energy generation for everyone. Also, as Nico was saying, to ask you about why Signature Solar's program where people get raises or something like that, how does that work?
As an employee, after 6 weeks, you have the option to go in and we will pay for you to get your NABCEP credentials. And once you go through the program and you become NABCEP certified, we will give you a raise, $5 an hour or the equivalent for salaried employees. And then once you get your board certification, we give you another $6 an hour. It's driving what we want. It's educating our staff to the point that if you get on the phone with anybody that's on our tech support team, there's a really good chance that you're talking to a board certified technician there.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. And I feel like that makes the level of support that Signature Solar is able to provide, top tier. And so we've got 224 total employees, 88 of them carry a NABCEP credential.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I've seen some of them in my classes.
I'm sure you have, yeah. And so they usually, I think it all runs through HeatSpring now. fairly certain.
You know, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Everybody should do that.
And it gets people totally invested. You know, if you go into the job and somebody is to tell you, hey, we're here to support your career and we're going to put you in a position that even if things don't work out with us, you've got a future in the solar industry. And so we want well-educated individuals out there making a difference in the industry.
And you do read articles all the time. Like I read them like every day about some company that's scamming people. Like today I was looking at some app, and there's somebody that put solar on a roof that was completely falling apart. And so that's one of the good things about like working with somebody that's NABCEP certified or something like that, is you're not going to see that happen. And then another thing too, that's like a good check and balance, is if somebody that's NABCEP certified did something like that, you would call NABCEP and they would lose their certification. Sean O'Brien would get PO'd, man. Yeah. It's just like there's all these companies out there that are just trying to make a buck. And it's in the short term, yeah, they're making a buck. And in the long term, maybe the person that owns the company, they walk off with the buck and they go to some other industry to make another buck, and they leave everybody else hanging. And the corporation goes bankrupt and they don't care, they're gone. So you got to just look out for some of that stuff. That's one of the things that I think is like really important to fix in this industry. Do you have the fix for that, Bill?
Well, I think that our industry has always attracted ne'er-do-wells that, wanted to maybe do things that were good, made themselves feel good, but the ends justified their means. And so it's not that they were bad people necessarily, but they wanted to do good things, and they felt, well, as long as I'm working toward this goal of saving the planet, then, how I do it shouldn't matter. And that's always been something that I have been very much against. If you want to do it, you have to do it right. And I consider myself an ambassador of photovoltaic technology of the industry, and primarily the technology, because even the industry can have its own issues. And so I was very supportive in developing requirements for NABCEP and organizations like that. And a good part of my career has been in training, even though I don't do much of it anymore. And so it's all about improving, understanding where things go wrong, and trying to help people understand how to do things right. And it's great to see, providing incentives to people to do the right thing. And you have to do that. I mean, you can't just tell people, we'd like you to become NABCEP certified, or we'd like you to do this. It's like, well, yeah, I'd like to have $1 million. You got to give them some kind of a carrot to say, this is what we'll do for you if you go to that effort, trouble of doing this, and it'll be good for you, it'll be good for us. It gives it great incentives, and the more companies that do those kinds of things. And that's not the only thing to do, but, internal trainings, making sure that your workforce really understands the ins and outs of it. Because, quite frankly, you could be good at taking tests and pass the NABCEP exam. So it's not just that. It's actually kind of learning the culture of how to do things right, having people that really care, teaching other people and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think there's no substitute for that kind of stuff. It just isn't. I'm always learning, always trying to go to the next level, trying to look down the road, and hopefully inspire other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, great, thanks. And so, Ben, I know that Signature Solar's from Texas. You must be from Texas, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel discriminated against being here in California?
Well, the fact that I can't go to a restaurant and order sweet tea, yes, I feel discriminated.
It's terrible. Yeah.
It's really rough. They actually had Dr. Pepper here this week, so I kind of made myself for it a little bit.
But you should feel comfortable, because most of California's moved to Texas. So
that's true. I'm used to being around California,
right.
certainly. It's pretty wild. The small town that we live in, we've got a really active economic development committee, and so they come out to California and recruit businesses to be back to Texas. So they're just kind of like coming to our city in waves. And so the population of our small town is about 16,000, and probably 2,000 of those moved here from California in the last 3 years.
So is that Sulfur Springs? Is that what you're talking about?
Sulfur Springs.
And where's that near, Ben?
It's east of Dallas. You come out of Dallas on Interstate 30. It's about 90 miles.
Mm-hmm. So near Radiator Springs?
Oh, not quite. Radiator Springs is more desert.
Oh, God.
We'll watch a lot of that.
That's right.
Actually, I did a class here where they came up with that. What is it, the Cars movie?
Yeah.
I did a class for a Native American tribe on the rim of the Grand Canyon. It was the most beautiful place that I ever did a class. So,
cool.
Here's to the Wallapai. They're pretty awesome.
You know, Sean, I feel like I got to tell you, whenever I got into the solar industry at Signature Solar, our training program was very basic at the time. And I went through orientation and they handed me your book, Solar Voltaic Basics, and read that. And that was my introduction to solar. And
All right.
So from day one of my solar journey, I've known who you were, and I'm honored to be able to do transitions on with you.
Wow, thanks so much. Yeah, it's like
Awesome. That's cool.
I wish they would have given me some more percentage on that book, the darn publisher.
Of course.
Somebody in England's making all the money.
Yeah, well, everybody that works at Signature Solar has a copy of it.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, the third edition, I already wrote it, but it's got to go through some publishing before it comes out. And then Bill and I also wrote a book, and it's called PV and the NEC, and we're also have our third edition out that's based on the 2023 NEC. And Bill is writing the 2026 NEC. And I think, Bill, you should make it clear that Signature Solar can just have, like, you don't need a special disconnect for one string.
Okay,
We appreciate that.
We'll put
Yeah.
that in there.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going into a mini split, don't worry about it. Little section in the code.
Yeah. Just one little string, a little mini split, no big deal.
Don't worry about that.
The NEC book is just, you guys are on a different level to be able to understand what's going on with that. Every time I read something, I don't get it. I feel like we're contradicting ourselves at times, but, that's a big problem, I suppose. But the
It's a
NEC
necessary evil.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, I get people that are a lot smarter than me, like you guys, to explain it, and it works better than that.
Oh, you'll get there. It just takes a while. I can remember my first time reading the NEC. It was like, I didn't even know what it was saying. And I read it into a microphone, and I listened to it back a whole bunch of times, and I kind of got familiar with the words, even though I didn't know what they meant and how they were related together and all that kind of stuff. And you know who studies more than anybody is me, and probably Bill too, because that's what our jobs are, is pretty much studying. Like, we're always learning stuff. I don't know, maybe I'll just speak for myself. What do you
Well,
think,
there's
Bill?
too much to learn. I mean, you learn about things that interest me.
Yeah.
And I keep learning about the code stuff because not necessarily that it interests me, but that I have to. But yeah, I mean, I get involved in a lot of residential PV and energy storage stuff because it's interesting. And so I'm personally interested in it. It keeps me involved. I have quite a few clients in that area as well, but I do a lot of legal work now, and so that's a little less interesting, but it pays the bills. So you got to stay involved in stuff that makes you want to get up in the morning and learn new things. Yeah, when I teach classes, I'm trying to get other people to get interested in it so they spend the rest of their lives wanting to pursue it and understand it and learning. And to the extent that you can do that, then you don't have to worry about pushing people to get training or pushing people to learn. If you're constantly needing to learn or wanting to learn because you want to get more out of it, then that's the opportunity.
Well, yeah, legal stuff, that sounds really scary to me, especially when you get cross-examined as an expert witness, and what do they start saying, like, what did you do in college, or whatever.
Watch that.
Yeah. I got a cross-examine the other day, and they started going down that road, and it's like, do you really want to go here? And so, oh, well, okay, sure, let's do this. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the deal. Lawyers are a necessary evil as well. My good lawyer joke is always, what do you call 1,000 lawyers bottom of the ocean? And,
That'd be a good thing or something.
so it's a good start. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
But there are a few good lawyers out there. They're just hard to find.
Like the ones that did go into law practice because they have souls or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's hard to maintain a soul in the business because all you care about is winning for your client. And so sometimes you have to kill your soul to get your client over the edge. And, as an engineer, my world is all about truth. What is true? What is real? And what is real is not that important to a lawyer. And so they have to look at what is real that helps their case.
Yep. Yeah, and my dad's a lawyer, so I always lost, even if I was right. But yeah, so lawyers, they're soulless. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I mentioned another inverter company that's competing against you.
That's right.
Actually, we carry Solus, so I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to mention them what you want. Just as long as you mention as you come by.
Yeah, sorry, Terrence, and he works over there. We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSean, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. So maybe we could talk about your batteries. Like I see a lot of people on the social media and stuff using your batteries. And like, why are so many people using your batteries?
It's a great product. It's got a very, very cost-effective price point. So homeowners are getting it for significantly less than what you do with most of the other batteries on the market. Installers and EPCs have a great opportunity to make a good deal of margin on these batteries. They're manufactured well. They're engineered in Texas, right across the street from where we're actually headquartered. And so James Showalter, our owner, he's got a passion for putting together great products that are extremely cost effective and are going to make a big splash in the industry. And so, I know a lot of people are adopting our batteries, but not fast enough. I mean, they really give the opportunity to have a whole home backup system. That's at my house. I've got the EG4 batteries with EG4 inverters, and very seldom do I ever draw anything from the grid. And it's a very attainable system for, your average person. So, I mean, the barrier to entry for EG4 batteries is much lower
Than where you see this on the market.
So are you allowed to just like tell us how much it costs or anything like that? Or is that like maybe not a good place for that? Or give you a call. Everybody give Ben a call.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. Go to the Signature Solar website or give a call and get your price point there.
Okay.
How much cheaper are you than your typical competition? Percentage level.
Typically 30%. So I can, say that your normal end user, you're probably looking somewhere in between the range of $3,500 and $4,000 for 14.3 kilowatt battery.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple of them over there. There's a few at the EG4 booth today. And so, I encourage folks to go check out that battery. The ease of installation is great. They communicate well with the inverter. I could pull out my phone and show you exactly what's going on in my house right now, how much I'm pushing back to the grid, where my battery capacity is at.
What your wife's doing?
What my wife's up to. I can tell if she's got the hairdryer on or if she's running the air conditioner too high or the heater, or, just depending on the season. I got a teenage daughter also, so whenever they're both at home, I'm positive all the lights are on in my house. I'm sure there's a hair straightener plugged in. All kinds of stuff that help make it real.
And so with the battery, does it have to be used with your inverter or how does that work?
No, it doesn't. So it has several communication protocols for EG4 plus a multitude of other.
So does it have like the UL 9540 test with the other inverters? Or
It does not yet. So if you need a 9540 solution, then the EG4
use your inverter?
is a lot better.
Okay.
And plus, it's a great inverter. It's cost effective. Why would you use it?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense too if you're going to use a brand to like use the same brand.
Keep an ecosystem,
Yeah.
And then get the EG4 8-pound after that. It's good. And so you'll be right here rolling in no time.
And then can I just take a few of those and throw them in my trunk?
I think try it pretty heavy.
Okay.
We don't need it throwing anything.
And I get my car so I could get more range than Bill's car. We're in a competition.
Yeah, if throwing a couple of those batteries in your trunk is definitely going to reduce your range. That's for sure, because they're big.
So somebody donated an inverter to me recently, and I went and picked it up, and he's some guy that took my class in 2008. His name's Scott Cornell, and he made an electric vehicle in 1986. And he's got the bumper sticker that says, "I've been driving EVs since Elon was 10. I thought that was kind of funny. And it's like he's won all these shows. It's like this really cool Volkswagen, and it's got like these, he opens up the hood, and it's got all these lead acid batteries in there and stuff like that. And so
Maybe a good thing if it's not super replicatable, that way, if we don't stick around, you got to be careful with that kind of technology.
The government don't really like it.
okay. Yeah, I used to drag race the thing, and then, of course, it's not going to keep up with today's cars. And then one time he was going to a show, and he was pulling a generator, charging his car so he could get there. Then he got stopped for lunch, and the generator's still going and all that. So
That's neat.
get a little extra range out of it. But that was like, can you imagine like driving an EV in 1986 or something?
It's like what I'm excited to see, and you kind of touched on something cool earlier when you talked about solar panels coming from the aliens.
Yep.
But eventually we got to catch up with them so that you can have the cars totally encapsulated in something that'll grab PV and charge your car efficiently while you're rolling down the road. And that's what's going on, is be able to start zipping around, flying like spaceships and things.
Yeah, I like making fun of stuff, and so like making fun of the alien thing, and then once in a while I get somebody coming up to me and they're like, "Yeah, I know what you mean. And I have to go along with it. So that I know that Mars is flat or Earth is a sphere. That's like, I mean, you could just look. It's pretty obvious. So let's see. I think we're supposed to finish up here. Does anybody got any questions? We got an audience here, so no comments, anything like that. Threats? I guess we're doing pretty good. And then how about you, Ben? Anything else about Signature? Or?
You know, I welcome everybody to please go visit the Signature Solar website. Check us out, see what we've got going on. If anybody's looking for a job, we're always hiring talented people. We do our best to surround ourselves with talented people in the solar industry. And we're looking to grow in every direction, really. We do direct to consumer, online. We work with a lot of EPCs, installers, so we have a great B2B support side. And then our online presence is doing really well.
And like you said too, like when they get the NABCEP associate, they get a $5 an hour raise.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get the other certification, they get another $6.
That's right.
So they're getting like $11 for like doing something that improves themselves, that they should be doing anyway. You know, it's like, it almost seems like, why wouldn't somebody do that?
That's right. I mean, you think about it, you come on board for, you know, 17, 18 bucks, something like that.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, you give yourself an $11 raise. And it's not, you know, you're doing this yourself. You're going in saying, I'm coming in here at this reasonable rate, especially for East Texas. It's not, cost of living is not that high. But if you give yourself an additional, it's about $22,000 a year. And that's a big come up to do 3 months worth of work.
Yeah, it's, I mean, not really even 3 months worth of work, probably. I mean, just like for the first $5, it's like a 1 or 2 weeks worth of work, and you could do it after work. And then for the other certification, I mean, it does depend on your background and all that kind of stuff, but it just seems like, why wouldn't somebody do that? You know?
Yeah, most of the guys on our team take the inspector route.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, cool. So that's the PV System Inspector, the PVSI.
Yes,
All right.
yep.
Yep. And then Bill, he's been writing stuff for NABCEP tests. You must have been on the first ever NABCEP meeting or something like that.
Yeah, we're involved in developing the original, including the NABCEP process.
So Bill is so early in NABCEP that he can't even take the exam, I don't think, right?
Well, back then I was doing training. They wouldn't let anybody who was training take the exam.
Yeah. And so I remember when I was on the committee, I would see like these old test questions that were written by Bill. They might still be there on like 10th generation, you know, changing words and stuff like that.
What year did NABCEP get started?
I was thinking it was around 2000, but
Yeah, 2000, 2001.
something like that. I think it like Ward Bauer had a call on the beach or something like that. Yeah.
So my question is regarding solar panel cleaners. So the amount of solar panel cleaning industry is totally regulated. No training needed at all. Firefighters spray water onto fire. They need a high level of training. Solar panel cleaners spray water onto electricity, creating devices with zero training needed. Any thoughts in place to introduce mandatory training for solar panel cleaners?
Yeah, should any job, I mean, obviously you have job hazard analysis in any job that you do regardless. And so I would hope that people that clean PV modules would have some type of a job hazard analysis. The hazards that are available to them are not insignificant. And so it really would depend on the location and things like that. But as far as having a separate certification, NABCEP, I don't represent NABCEP, by the way. I was just involved in helping develop some of the initial standards, and I write some of the documentation that goes along with it. But anyway, it's unlikely they would have a separate one for something like that. Now, when you get into things like rapid shutdown and all, those are things that are specifically and intended for firefighter safety, but would be relevant to somebody who was, for instance, cleaning PV modules on a rooftop. Reducing the hazard any way that is possible would be something that would be appropriate. Now, does that happen today? I sincerely doubt it. Will someone get injured cleaning solar panels? Yes, there's no doubt about it. I have been injured. I have been shocked quite a few times, more times than I like to talk about. And so when you introduce water in those kind of scenarios, it is a potentially lethal situation. And so right now it's an unregulated business. We have a thing called Darwin Awards that are handed out on a regular basis to award things that are unwise. And pretty confident the Darwin Awards will be awarded to people, unfortunately, and there will be injuries, and that's usually what's needed to get people kind of focused on the issue from the safety point of view and figuring out how to improve safety. Water and electricity, they do mix quite well. It's so
You can make hydrogen, which is explosive.
it's the process is how your body interacts with that whole circuit that becomes important. I don't see a lot of effort in that area, but who knows? Maybe that'll be a whole area where somebody will come out with their super safe cleaning systems.
Yeah, and then NABCEP does have NABCEP PVCMS certification. So it's called Commissioning and Maintenance Specialist certification. So that would be a good exam to take. And I know that there's talk about them coming up with a NABCEP O&M associate exam. I think there's been funding for that, and they have to come up with the exam. And those are some other things that would help. But yeah, like Bill said, the Darwin Awards. I was just reading an article this morning, PV Magazine, that somebody was killed by a solar module. And it wasn't their fault because they were driving behind somebody that was towing something that had PV on it, and it flew through his window and it took him out. But I guess it wasn't the Darwin Award for the guy that got taken out on that one. Yeah, okay. All right, well, thanks everybody, and thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To find out more, go to solarsean.com. To get yourself an expert witness, go to brooksolar.com. That's BROOKSOLAR.com. And Bill will testify on your behalf. And you can also go hang out with Ben Whillock at signaturesolar.com and get yourself a really cool mini split. What happens if I put too much PV on it?
Typically they throttle.
They'll throttle.
So it'll must be excess.
Okay, we're going to do some research. Stay tuned. Yeah. If I'm not here next year, you know what happened.
Too much PVA.
That's right.
All right, thanks everyone.